This short video will explain to you how to fill in the RSD application form in Israel. Please note that you can also find this video in French, Tigrinya, Arabic, Amharic, and Hebrew on our website. In order to be recognized as a refugee in Israel, you must go through the refugee status determination process. If you would like more information about the definition of a refugee, please visit the ARDC office. This is the Refugee Status Determination application form, which you have to fill out in order to enter the RSD process. We will look at this form in detail. For this video, we are using the latest version of the form, which has 8 pages. You might have a form that has only 6 pages. You can also use this form. Please be aware, however, that the page numbers and the names of the sections in the 6-page version may be slightly different from what you will see here. The content will be the same. The first half of this page is for the use of the person handling your case at the Ministry of Interior only. Do not write anything here. Attaching a photograph is optional. As you start to fill out your application, here are a few tips to keep in mind. Be as truthful, honest, and clear as possible. Remember that you will be interviewed based on the information given in this application. Because you don't want to contradict yourself at a later point, make sure that you are absolutely certain about the details that you give in the application form. Make sure to only write the dates that you know for certain. Do not try to guess specific dates. If you only know the year, feel free to only write the year. You can write down dates using a different calendar. For example, you may write down a date from the Ethiopian calendar. Just make sure to write the name of the calendar that you're using next to the date. This is very important. When filling out the application form, write as clearly as possible. Part A starts at the bottom of the first page. This is where you should list your personal information, such as your name, the citizenship you hold, the date and place of your birth, and your full and current contact information. Switching to page 2 of the application. Make sure you write your phone number and your full address, including the street number. This should be the address of the place where you currently live. It is important that the Ministry of Interior will be able to contact you. Part B is about your education, and more specifically, the highest level of education you have obtained. You need to write the name of any schools you attended and the city or country where these schools are located. You should also write down the dates that you attended these schools if you remember them. If you received a degree or a diploma, write down the name. If you never received any degrees or diplomas, you should write the highest level of schooling that you obtained. If you never attended school, you can leave this part blank and move on to the next part. We are now on part C. You are asked here about your last profession or occupation in your home country. If you have never worked, you can leave this part blank. Part D is about ID or other documents that you can provide to the ministry in order to prove your identity or support your claim for refugee status. For example, you can provide an identity card, a passport, a birth or baptism certificate, or a party membership card. Any other documents that could either help to prove your identity or support your claim for refugee status, such as newspaper articles or pictures, should be written down here. Switching to page 3. If any of the documents that you hold were obtained in an illegal manner, you have to state this on page 3. If any information in the documents that you hold is incorrect, you should also state this. For example, if your birth date is incorrect on your passport, you need to state this. Be careful not to use fake documents, as this will get you in trouble later. In this part, you are also asked if there are any documents that are missing. Generally, if you have no identification documents, you have to explain the reason for this and state if you think you will be able to obtain documents that can help to prove your identity. We are still on the 3rd page. We will now go to part E. This is where you specify if you were ever registered by the UNHCR in any country. If the answer is yes, try to provide as many details as possible. You are also asked if you ever asked the UNHCR or any other government for refugee status in any other country. If you ask for refugee status in another country, you should state whether or not you received refugee status. If you possess an UNHCR card, you can also list it in Part D. Now, in the next parts, you are asked to provide information about your family. Focus on your immediate living family members. This includes your parents, brothers and sisters, wife or husband, and children. Part F is about your family currently living in Israel. If they are already registered with the Ministry of Interior in Israel, you should provide their numbers at the Ministry of the Interior. Switching to page 4. Now we go to Part G, which can be found on page 4. This is where you list the close family members you have in your home country. Part H is where you provide information about family members in other parts of the world. Under the column Status, you should write about the legal status of your family members in the country where they live. For example, they can be asylum seekers, recognized refugees, residents, citizens, and etc. Switching to page 5. We are now on page 5. Part 1 is about your journey to Israel. You will need to describe how you traveled, which countries you traveled through, and where and when you entered Israel. Here, you also need to state if you have been in Israel before. When asked about your exit point or entrance point, you should state the name of the place through which you exited or entered a country. For example, if you came to Israel by plane, your point of entrance will be Ben Gurion Airport. If you came in Israel illegally through the Sinai, you can write Sinai border or Israel-Egypt border. If you cross the border between Israel and Egypt through an existing border crossing, you should specify the place where you crossed the border. We are at Part J. This part only exists in the 8-page form. If you are using the 6-page form, you can jump to the next part. If you think you will be more comfortable being interviewed by a person of a certain gender, you can state this here. You are also asked to state the language in which you want to be interviewed. The language that you will be interviewed in has to be an official language. We recommend that you write down the language in which you feel most comfortable. It is important that you will be able to give precise answers to really specific questions during your interview. Switching to page 6. We are now on page 6. Part K is a written statement where you will explain why you are requesting protection from the State of Israel. This is the most important part of the application. It is important here that you explain your personal story as precisely as possible. However, we want to emphasize again that you should not make guesses about any date or piece of information. You should only write down dates or pieces of information that you are absolutely sure about. It is very important to be truthful because you will be interviewed based on this application. It is important that you don't contradict yourself during the interview because the Ministry of Interior will deem your claim as not credible. We are now going to look at the specific questions. Question 1 is, why did you leave your home country? Here you have to explain your motivation for leaving your country, how the situation in your country made you leave, and if this situation affects you personally. Question 2. What do you believe may happen to you or your family members of your household if you return to your home country? If you believe that returning to your home country would put you in danger, you should state this here. You should also explain why you have such a fear. If the country you fled is different from your country of nationality, you will need to explain here why you cannot return to the country that you fled, as well as why it is impossible for you to go to your country of nationality. In question 3, you should mention any political, ethnic, military, or religious group you or a member of your family belongs to. You should also try to describe what kind of group it is, what goals the group has, and etc. If you were enrolled in the army, you should write this in question 4. You have to describe your rank and your task in the army. If you did not finish your time in the army, or if you were only in military training, you should specify this as well. If you have ever been detained or arrested in your home country, you should state this in question 5. Don't forget to specify if you are ever on trial and if so, whether you were convicted. Do not worry about repeating information in different questions. If you need more space, feel free to use a blank page and to attach it to your application. If you have any documents to support your claim, don't forget to add them to your application as well. If you attach an extra page to the application form, make sure to specify this in the application form. You can do this writing under the relevant question that you added more information in a separate page that you attached to the application form. Switching to page 8. On page 8, you need to write where, the place, and when, the date that you filled out the application form, and then sign the document. When you sign, you are certifying that everything you wrote is true and that if you gave any false or misleading information, your application can be refused. If your contact details change or if your family situation changes, you should inform the Population and Immigration Authority, SALAME. It is important to keep the Ministry of the Interior up to date on your application. They will close your case if they are unable to reach you. You are now done with your application. You can go and hand it in at the Population and Immigration Authority office, which you may also know as the Ministry of Interior or Misrad Hatnim or as Salame. The office is on Salame 53 in South Tel Aviv. You should go there before 8 a.m., preferably on a Monday or a Wednesday. Be ready to spend your entire day there. If you have any problems filling the application or any other problems regarding your asylum application in general, feel free to come to the ARDC office at the Taganat Markazit from Sunday to Thursday between 12 and 6 o'clock. We will try to help you the best we can.